Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and welcome to our 2013 college football preview show, where today we're going to break down the independents. So let's start this video off by hitting the recruiting trail to see how well these teams recruited this past offseason.
Notre Dame has the top recruiting class amongst the FBS independents. They put a heavy emphasis on getting depth on the offensive side of football. You see some of the recruits they have right there. William Fuller is a very good wide receiver coming out of Philadelphia, and Mike Hiraman out of Naples, Florida should be another one of those athletic tight ends that they utilize often in their passing attack. On the defensive side of football, there's a bunch of guys that can make an impact early on for this football team. Max Redfield is a guy I think is going to see a lot of time as a defensive back. Even though they don't have Eddie Vanderdoes anymore, Jacob Matuska out of Columbus, Ohio is a guy that should see some time very early as a freshman at that 5 technique position. So the key recruit, in my opinion, is Jalen Smith, the linebacker, coming in 6'3", 220 pounds. This is a guy that has all the speed and athleticism in the world. Coming off the edge, you can see him being a terror in that 3-4 defense. Was also a very outstanding running back at the high school level. Your option game is only as strong as your offensive line. That's why Patrick Joseph is a guy that I think may see time very early in that Army offense. 6'3", 285, right tackle, does a great job on the move. The super athletic Talon Shumway is a guy that already looks like a BYU wide receiver. Long, athletic, sacrificing his body. I think he'll fit fine in that offense. Getting top JUCO talent helps stabilize your offense as you're in the rebuilding process. And Juan Martinez, linebacker, 6'3", 225, will probably see a lot of time, may even start for the Vandals on that defense. An already strong secondary got even better with the Navy Midshipmen being able to grab Kyle Battle, 6'1", 195-pound defensive back. This is another guy that's instinctive, is not afraid to come up and lay the hit. True freshman King Davis III will also be tossed into the fray for the starting quarterback position at New Mexico State. Keep an eye on this young man as they're moving to a spread type of attack. They want an athletic guy back there, and Davis III definitely fits the bill. In my opinion, what Keenan Reynolds showed last season for the Navy Midshipmen, more in particular what I saw in that Army game, I came away very impressed with. They definitely have the best quarterback situation, in my opinion, out of the FBS independents. When you have the #1 rushing offense in back-to-back years, yes, I know you run the option, but when you look at Larry Dixon, the fullback, and tailback Raymond Maples, they're a big reason why these are two outstanding tailbacks that play for Army. If you give me Kanakwa Frill, Cody Hoffman, and Ross Apo, I'll win a lot of football games. BYU definitely has an impressive core of receivers. Even with the loss of Braxton Cave in the middle, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish offensive line is still a very good one. They're solid on the ends with Zach Martin and Christian Lombard. I don't think anyone will argue with you about Notre Dame having the best defensive line amongst this group. You look at Stephon Tuitt and Lewis Nix III doing their job up front, making it easier for the linebackers to get pressure. In my opinion, it's a tie between BYU and Notre Dame for having the best linebacking core amongst the independents. You look at Prince Shambo. You also look at Ishaq Williams, a reserve, but still is a very good player and could start on many teams. And also Dan Fox in the middle. And even though they lose a guy the caliber of Manti Te'o, this is still a very impressive core of guys. And BYU, you look at Kyle Benoit and Spencer Hadley. Both guys can bring pressure off the edge and have the athleticism to drop back in coverage. So both Notre Dame and BYU have the best linebacking cores amongst these independents. Notre Dame has the best secondary unit. When you look at the cornerback play that they were able to get last year from 2 freshmen in Bennett Jackson and Kavari Russell, that earns them a spot on this list. Navy has the best special teams unit. You look at Nick Sloan, who was an outstanding kicker last year, went 10 out of 15 on his kicks, hitting 32 in a row at one point, and punter Pablo Beltran averaged 43.6 yards a punt, which was 3rd most in school history. And they also have a very good returner in Marcus Thomas. I think the offensive MVP amongst the independents this year will be Jamal Williams, the running back from BYU. I think they're going to lean on that running game a little bit more in the early part of the season, and what he did last year as a freshman should only get better this year as a seasoned sophomore. Defensive MVP will be Jamal Williams' teammate Kyle Benoit, one of the best linebackers in the country, and could get a vote for our best pro prospect. Just a big fan of how this guy plays the game. The freshman of the year amongst the independents will be quarterback Chad Challenge out of Idaho. He's going to get the starting nod, and they're going to depend on him to get that passing game going because we know they can run the football, and he has some outstanding targets on the flanks, so he could have a very good freshman year, a redshirt freshman year that is. There are so many players I can put here for the best pro prospect. You look at Cody Hoffman, you also look at Kyle Benoit, Lewis Nix, but Stephon Tuitt is one of those guys that you have to account for each and every Saturday, one of the best players in the country regardless of the position. I do believe New Mexico State has the toughest schedule of the FBS independents considering what they have on the roster and they're trying to rebuild. Look at that road schedule. Texas, UCLA, Louisiana, Florida Atlantic is always tough, and they have home games versus Boston College and Minnesota and San Diego State. That's a very tough schedule for a team that's in the rebuilding phase of their program. Replacing Trent Stillman will be tough, but the number one rushing offense will be fine once again because of two bruises in the backfield and fullback Larry Dixon and Raymond Maples, the slot back. Dixon is 6'1", 240 pounds, and Maples is a guy that's 6'1", 220. They also have vets on the interior of the offensive line, and that's crucial for the option attack. The main issue will be the defensive side of the football if they can generate enough pass rush to protect that secondary. There are pieces up front to be successful. Look at defensive end Robert Coe, defensive tackle Rich Glover, and linebacker Kobe Miller. We look at safety Jeffrey Bacon. He'll do his part to show up the back end, but he's a former linebacker making that transition to the secondary. Can he make that switch? That's going to be the biggest question, but he can't do it alone. He's a very talented player. They'll have to step up that pass defense, especially in the first quarter of the season. They play Ball State, La Tech teams that can really throw the football. If they can hold their own in the first part, then the second half of the schedule sets themselves up to make a run to try to get that 6th win to earn themselves a bowl bid. Now let's take a look at the BYU Cougars. When you look at their skill positions, you have to like what you see. Excellent receivers in Cody Hoffman, Ross Apo, tight end Kanakwa Frio, and running back Jamal Williams, who's coming off a very impressive and productive freshman season. They also get Michael Elisa back in the backfield to formulate a very good 1-2 punch. So from the skill position perspective, they're set. The question is the offensive line and the quarterback position. They're going to be replacing some key pieces up front with only 3 starters returning, led by left tackle Riker Matthews, who's a fine player. Taysom Hill will be the new quarterback, but he's coming off an ACL injury that was suffered in the middle of the season. And although he got experience early in the year, he's going to be learning a new offense, new pieces up front, could lead to a passing game getting off to a slow start. Now defensively, they'll still be tough, especially in the front 7. They'll be getting back defensive tackle Ethan Manny Maliuna, a huge boost, and it actually makes that Ziggy Ansah loss a wash. They'll be able to bring pressure from both sides with Van Doren and Hadley, and they also are excellent in the secondary. So defensively, I think they'll be able to keep the team afloat. So I think they'll go bowling, but getting into a bigger bowl could be in store if they can get out of September with a 500 record. Now let's take a look at Idaho this season. The good thing about the Vandals 2013 campaign is that they'll see vast improvement over last season's 1-11 mark. The reason why I believe new head coach Paul Petrino will be successful is due to, number one, they have a very good offensive line that returns, led by center Mike Marbo, and 2, they're bringing in an influx of JUCO talent transfers, and that means they're going to be able to stabilize the depth chart instead of relying on true freshmen, guys that actually have collegiate playing experience. Although different, it's still a lot better than having a freshman. Finally, their schedule is favorable, and the plan is to lean on that ground game very early and create some play-action passing opportunities for a talented group of wide receivers led by Najee Lovett. Defensively, there are some pieces in place that will be aided by a host of JUCO transfers. Look at defensive end Max Ford. He's returning as the team's leading sack leader. He had 4. The sad part is they only had 17, so they have to make getting to the quarterback priority number 1 defensively. That will go a long way in helping out a pass defense that ranked 106th in the country. Again, with the JUCOs they have coming in, along with the schedule, I could see the Vandals flirting with 6 wins. The Midshipmen have one of the more talented players in the country in quarterback Keenan Reynolds. Reynolds is the guy that will give them what they want, the option attack as a runner, almost 900 yards last season, and as a passer, and that element right there could make Navy even more dangerous in 2013. And actually, we're going to learn more about wide receivers Casey Bellina and Sean Lynch and how well they can catch the football. Now, defensively, they returned 6 starters, but I think they're deeper than those numbers may indicate. When we look at the secondary, it shows the ability to match up well with wide receivers. You look at Paris Gaines, he's the leader of that group at 6'2", 200 pounds. And Gaines has the ideal size along with great instincts. And while that front seven gives up a lot in size, they don't in effort and activity. They are constantly around the football. And this linebacking core are long, athletic, and they can move. So there's a chance for Navy to go undefeated, but more than likely, I'll say 9 or 10 games are within reach. Future is definitely looking up for the Aggies, and I like new head coach Doug Martin's decision to move to the 3-4 because the personnel actually suggests that they do so. You look up front, you see guys like Willie Mobley, Matt Romando. Those are some outstanding players. Linebacker Trayshawn Nixon was the second leading tackler and also had 3 sacks, so he's good on the second level. And we've talked about safety Davis Cesaris and what he means to that defense, and now he's the best player on that defense. And offensively, there's some bright spots with talented wide receiver Austin Franklin, who went over 1,200 yards receiving last year. The question is the quarterback position. New offense, new quarterback. Gone is Andrew Manley and 2 guys, Trayvon Caldwell and JUCO transfer Andrew McDonald. They'll compete for the starting job. Both will have the benefit of a good running game. You look at running back Jeremy Morrison and a solid offensive line, and left tackle Devontae Wallace is the best of the group. He was a 2-time All-WAC performer. I think what you'll see from the Aggies very early in the season is a reliance on the running game. The 3-4 defense they're trying to run will be a one-gap defense, which means guys won't have many responsibilities. It's a lot easier to play a one-gap defense. I think they're going to get after the quarterback, try to keep the game close, and hopefully they can win it late. They have an excellent special teams unit, but right now I see them being better than last year, but still in that rebuilding phase. Last year, Notre Dame had an outstanding season. They were able to run the football, timely passing game, a lot of weapons on offense. Defensively, they were playing some smothering football with Manti Te'o leading the way. This year, I still believe their defense will be solid. They will be stifling, especially in the front seven. Now they have more seasoned guys in the secondary. The question is the quarterback position. Will Everett Golson be reinstated in time for the season kickoff versus Temple? Because that first quarter of the season is very tough. September looks brutal at Michigan, at Purdue, who's going to be vastly improved. They have Michigan State and Oklahoma at home. So that's a very tough September schedule. However, when you look at their defense, they will still be able to apply pressure. 8 starters return. So I think what Brian Kelly is going to do for this first part, he'll lean on that running game. He'll lean on that offensive line that still returns 3 starters, and he'll ask his defense to keep it close and their special teams to get a lot better and win some games. I still see Notre Dame as a team that will make a bowl game. That's no doubting that. But they won't be back in a national championship game unless they can get better and consistent play from the quarterback position, whether it's Everett Golson or Tommy Reese.